Hello, my name is Reverend Mindy Tucker, and I am here on behalf as a guest speaker for Unity Spiritual Center of Hilton Head. I am speaking to you in this moment, in this video, because the senior minister, Reverend Therese Lee, is taking some much deserved spiritual renewal time. I'm speaking on the first Sunday of Advent of 2021. We begin our time with prayer. I invite you to close your eyes as you are comfortable, or at least soften your gaze so that you can tune into your own essence of light, of love, of strength and courage, an essence that reminds you of infinite potential. The infinite potential and possibility of all good, all peace, and all joy exist in you in this moment. And for that remembrance of our oneness with God, we say thank you and amen. Here at Unity Spiritual Center of Hilton Head, we like to remind you some very important truths about yourself. The first is that you are a beloved expression of God. The second is that you're here for a holy purpose. And the third is that you are always in the right place at the right time, right now. I heard on the news this weekend that this year, over 4 million United States citizens were traveling from one place to another. And if you were one of those 4 million United States citizens, or just a person who was traveling from one place to another to celebrate the holiday weekend, this weekend of Thanksgiving, the end of a season of gratitude, I trust and affirm that your travel was easy and smooth and uneventful in all the right ways. So you are always in an awareness that you're in the right place at the right time, right now. We use this weekend to transition from that season of Thanksgiving to a season of giving, to the Christmas time. Christmas time is here, happiness and cheer. We mark this first Sunday in Advent as the beginning of a time of spiritual wait for it, anticipation. It's an anticipation in which we look forward to a time where we get to engage in gift giving. We get to engage in being with people that we don't always see. We get to decorate for the holidays. It's a consciousness that is pervasive of celebration around the world, especially in our Western culture, and in particular in our consciousness, in our collective consciousness. People are celebrating this time of cheer, this time of joy. Is a very emotional time. Not everybody considers it the best time of the year, because it heightens an awareness of what they don't have in their lives or what we don't have in our lives. But it's also a time where we can really anchor ourselves in a spiritual awareness of what in Unity we call the reawakening of our own Christ consciousness, the reawakening and the remembering of our own divinity, the reawakening and the re-enlivening. It's actually where enlightenment comes from. This time of Christmas, metaphysically, we turn our attention to that spiritual practice of anticipation. Now, we just had Black Friday, and I don't know if you went out into the frenzy of the public world. People are still being very mindful of the pandemic. Although just in shopping a week ago, there were what I consider bajillions of people in the store. So I can only imagine if you went to a store on Black Friday, I did not, what that experience was. And if you didn't, you at least have begun to think about Christmas shopping. And if you haven't begun to think about Christmas shopping on your own, you've gotten tons of emails saying, here, think about this idea, and ads on television saying, think about that idea. Virtual gifts in 2021 are still very popular. So you may be anticipating getting one of these kinds of virtual gifts. If you were thinking about virtual exercise gifts, you can give or get yoga classes online. You can give or get gym workout experiences online. And if you're super talented and flexible and creative, you can even take a dance class online with Alvin Ailey in New York City. There are virtual gifts that are more like learning. You can give somebody the gift of a cooking class, or you can give them a university extension, a gift certificate for a university extension course, or you can give them an app. There's all kinds of apps that support our learning like what plant is this or what bird is that. And if you're into those virtual experiences, you can buy somebody a virtual wine tasting in which they get shipped to them the wine, and then they get a meeting time with a vintner who made that wine, and they can, learn all those very important wine things that people need to learn. You can also get a virtual experience of a cameo of a television or a movie star. They will, for a fee, personalize your holiday greeting or a birthday greeting if you prefer. But you can get somebody, a celebrity for as little as $30 who will in a very quick time turn around and from their celebrity status as being on Sex and the City or Desperate Housewives or whatever television show or movie they were in, they'll say, and they'll put in your name. They'll say, Merry Christmas, Reverend Mindy, or whatever your name is. Nicholas Sparks, the best-selling author, said, never forget that anticipation is an important part of life. Work is important, family is important, but without excitement, you have nothing. You're cheating yourself if you refuse to enjoy what's coming. And I think those Christmas gifts would be something to anticipate. Here's some other quotes about Christmas from W.J. Tucker. He says, for centuries, men have kept an appointment with Christmas. Christmas means fellowship, feasting, giving and receiving, a time of good cheer and home. Mary Ellen Chase said, Christmas is not a date, it's a state of mind. Edna Ferber says, Christmas isn't a season, it's a feeling. And Bess Streeter Aldrich said, Christmas Eve was a night of song that wrapped itself around you like a shawl, but it warmed more than your body. It warmed your heart, filled it too with a melody that would last forever. I find all of these quotes delicious because they speak of a Christmas Eve and a Christmas Sunday that is yet to come from where we are right now on this first Sunday in Advent. We can anticipate together. In Unity, we look at the entire Christmas experience metaphysically. And metaphysically, what we recognize is that there's a story behind the story. There's a meaning behind those literal words. There's something in that Christmas story that makes it alive for each one of us today in this moment. And in looking at the Gospel of John, that story that picks up the thread of the evolution of human consciousness, which is what the Bible is from start to finish. I think the biggest mistake we ever made was putting a back cover on the Bible, but that's a whole nother lesson. So the Gospel of John says, when we begin that story of the cosmic Christ, when we begin to look at metaphysically what Christmas means to us in this now moment, the Gospel of John says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. That echoes and takes us right back to Genesis. In the beginning, God created. In the beginning, God created. God created the heavens and the earth. God created the firmament that separates in conscious mind, in consciousness, the heavens and the earth. Faith is that firmament metaphysically. So metaphysically, what connects our conscious mind in our earthly realm, in the relative realm that we live in, to that superconscious mind, that heavenly mind, that heavenly realm, is our faith. It's our faith. And we use our faith, that sensation of hope, of reaching for something else, something other than what we have. It's the energy and it's the power and it's that faculty of faith that we have, that we reach for something else. It's anticipation that connects our conscious mind with that superconscious mind. Now, with Allah, it works both ways. So if we were to use our faith to connect to superconscious mind, we could also use our faith to connect to our reality. And because we're sovereign beings, because we have dominion over our own thinking, we can use our conscious mind and our power of faith to connect either way. Do we want to connect to the kingdom of heaven? Or do we want to connect to something else? When we're conscious about it, I'd like to think most often we use our faith to connect to the kingdom of heaven. Now, Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, says our faith is our magnetic power to draw to us what our heart desires. Our magnetic power to draw to us what our heart desires. And we have been filled with the capacity for faith since the beginning of time. Another thing that Unity Metaphysics teaches us is that we have co-creative power. And when I say co-creative, I go back to we can choose to link with our faith, with our anticipation, with our hope to heaven or earth. And when we remember to create it, to link our co-creative power to the kingdom of heaven, we're using our faith to remember our oneness with God. We're using our faith to remember our infinite potential. We're using our faith to anticipate all that's good. We're using our faith to participate in the spiritual practice of anticipation. In Hebrew scriptures, which of course is our earlier time of human evolution, it appeared that we forgot our oneness with God more often. If you go back through Hebrew scriptures, from Genesis even, they're filled with stories. Genesis and all of Hebrew scriptures are filled with stories of instances of human beings forgetting their oneness with God. Abraham, he forgot his oneness with God, but then he remembered. Jacob, he forgot his oneness with God, but then he remembered. And when the prophets came in to that evolution of human consciousness, they were always preaching, you have forgotten your oneness with God. Remember your oneness with God. For when you remember your oneness with God, you will have that spiritual reawakening. You will remember your infinite capacity for good and for peace. One of the most beautifully written books in Hebrew scriptures is the book of Isaiah. beautifully written. Oh, if you want like water to pour over yourself when you're feeling like a desert, read some Isaiah. And from the unity perspective, read it metaphysically. But in the 7th chapter of Isaiah, verses 14 and 15, there is a prophecy. Prophets were good at that. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son and shall name him Emmanuel. He shall eat curds and honey by the time he knows how to refuse evil and choose the good. So that anticipation of a time in our own lives where we will be able to eat curds and honey, the most delicious food on the planet. Fill in your own blank if you don't like curds and honey. But imagine having the capacity to choose your meal, to choose what you want to feed your body and feed your soul, and recognize that you have the capacity to refuse evil and to choose good. We are incredibly powerful, spiritual, and human beings. In Isaiah chapter 9, verses 2 through 7, the prophecy goes on and it says, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. You have seen a great light. It's like, bing, you've tuned in to Unity Spiritual Center of Hilton Head today. To remember this great idea is yours to act upon. You have seen a great light. Those who have lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. You have multiplied the nation. You have increased joy. For a child has been born for us. A child, a new idea. His son has given to us authority, rest upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace. This prophecy of the coming of the Christ, of the man that we later identified as Jesus of Nazareth, was foretold hundreds of years before his birth. It's called a messianic prophecy. Hundreds of years before, it's like there was an inkling that each of us has this great capacity to expand our consciousness, to recognize our own divinity, that emergent light, that emergent illumination, that emergent capacity to choose heaven and choose heaven and to choose heaven and to choose heaven. Awaken that within yourself. That's what Advent's all about. It's like getting ready to awaken to a new level of awareness. It's anticipating the brilliance of ourselves that is yet to come. It's like, how audacious is that? Yeah, but audacious is in our DNA. We are naturally audacious. It's like a divine birthright to be audacious. And so this Advent, we begin with faith, linking right where we are on earth, in our human consciousness, linking with hope and anticipation, using that spiritual practice of anticipation, exercising the law with a spiritual practice of anticipation to the heavens, to the milk, the honey, to the most delicious experiences we can imagine. There are a lot of studies done on the practice or the experience of anticipation. A recent study done in the Netherlands linked the thoughts that we have about something that we think is going to happen or we want to happen, linking those thoughts actually prolongs the experience and the satisfaction of the event or the experience itself. So if you think about, wow, I'd love to go on a wonderful vacation. I would like to take a vacation. You name your place. You know, if you're a homebody, I'd like to stay home and not get interrupted, or I want to get on a cruise, or I want to drive across the country, whatever romanticized version of a vacation you have. And you begin to generate those thoughts about what a wonderful time you're going to have. And then you go and you have that wonderful time. You've actually, through the spiritual practice of anticipation, you have given yourself more joy, more satisfaction, more happiness than if you had just said, okay, I've booked the tickets, I'm going, or I've unplugged all my devices and I'm taking that staycation at home. Whatever the vacation is for you, you've prolonged your joy, your peace, your satisfaction, your happiness. Now, it's also been known for a long time, and I've said this already, that the law works both ways. So if we are anticipating, and the study in the Netherlands showed this too, if we're anticipating something with a negative attitude, then we were also prolonging our negative experience. The writer Seneca, who was a contemporary of Jesus, said this: "He who suffers before necessary suffers more than is necessary." So if you think about how the law works both ways, we are right up against that concept. So we get to choose suffering or no suffering. And when we're conscious, who wants to choose suffering? But sometimes we do. A number of years ago, I got divorced. And my divorce could have been constituted as messy. You know, it was. And then it was over. But not long after my divorce was final, I knew that I was going to have to be in the same place as my former husband because my younger son was graduating from college. And as part of the celebration of graduating, my son's girlfriend's parents, long story, make it shorter. Anyway, the girlfriend's parents were throwing this big graduation party, and I knew I was going to be at the same table as my former husband. And I was not anticipating this experience with very many positive thoughts. In fact, I thought it was going to be difficult, horrible, and awful. And I continued to think thoughts and anticipate it as difficult, horrible, and awful until someone very close to me and very wise said, "What if you could imagine this experience to be fun?" And I'm thinking, no way. And she said, okay, imagine yourself as a detached observer and watch the energy bounce around the room. Now, I thought that was kind of fun because I didn't have to imagine myself engaging, but I could imagine myself entertaining myself by watching the energy that was going to bounce around the room. And do you know what? When I was at that graduation dinner, sitting across from the former husband, where he engaged in all kinds of similar behavior that was led to the dissolution of the marriage in the first place, I could watch it as a detached observer. So I can't say I had only fun, but I certainly had some fun because I engaged in the spiritual practice of the law of using anticipation to shift what I thought was going to be a difficult, horrible, awful experience. So if you start thinking about Christmas, or even maybe having a Christmas party, or getting together with people who you're going to have to get together with, what if What if, starting on this first Sunday in Advent, you began to think different thoughts? What if you began to imagine all the creative ways that you could use your faith, your magnetic power, to draw to you that which your heart desires? What if? What if you engaged in the spiritual practice of anticipation? There are a lot of health benefits to engaging in either the secular practice or the spiritual practice of anticipation. If I were to ask you to imagine for a moment that you were getting ready to bite into a slice of orange that was juicy and sweet and ripe and wonderful, notice what's happening in your mouth. Did you know that the activity of salivating actually is a health benefit to digestion? So using your power of the law in the spiritual practice of anticipation is actually promoting your physical well-being. Using this practice of anticipation to anticipate sleep is also another tremendous health benefit. When we anticipate sleep, our blood pressure goes down, our heart beats slower and more evenly, and our capillaries dilate to the appropriate size. Just thinking about sleep, just thinking about taking that nap, or just thinking about getting a good night's sleep is an anticipatory benefit to our health. Now, I will point out that when we sleep, yes, our heart beats steadier for longer periods of time in a slower beat, and our capillaries do dilate to their optimal size, but our blood pressure only lowers when we anticipate sleep and not during the activity of sleep itself. There's a lot more research that talks about the benefits of anticipation, and if you start thinking about sports and the strategies you can use to benefit yourself when you're engaging in sports like tennis, if you go after that shot and you anticipate making that shot every time that the ball comes over the net toward you, you're actually creating anticipatory anxiety in your opponent, because they're never going to know when you're going to make it or not. So they're going to have to prepare. Their adrenaline goes up and they're going to have to prepare to return your shot. It's an advantage. In business and marketing, using the practice of anticipation is what makes hype so successful. If you think back to the days where they hyped up, Apple hyped up iPhone 5, and then the 6, and then the 6S, and then there was the Apple Watch, and then there was the 11, and there was the 12, and then there was the 12 Pro, and now you really ought to go out and get the 13 Pro. We always feel like with that anticipatory hype that there's something better for us. So I invite you to tune into your spiritual nature, your own divine light, and turn that anticipatory hype to an anticipation of an amazing holiday Christmas season. More light, more peace, more joy, more happiness, more satisfaction. We have a strategic impact on our experience when we engage the law in the spiritual practice of anticipation. I like what Samuel Smiles has to say. He says, an intense anticipation itself transforms possibility into reality. Our desires often being but precursors of the things we are capable of performing. And that fits so well with Unity's co-founders, Charles Fillmore's statement about faith being our magnetic power to draw unto us that which our heart desires. There was a prophecy about the birth of the Christ child, a desire for endless peace, a spiritual awakening, a desire for remembering our co-creative power, our oneness with God. We begin that awakening today. We begin amping up, magnifying our desire for enlightenment today, in this moment. Remember, you are in the right place at the right time, right now. This message is an invitation for you to step into a greater awareness of your awesome, awesome divinity. You were born with it. Remember it now. Remember it now with a dawning awareness of the infinite potential and possibility that lies in you. And surrender to your audacious nature. Surrender to your audacity. Let's take a moment to bring these ideas into a time of meditation, a time of integration. So take a breath and set aside any concern, any thought of lack or limitation, any thought that this message was not for you, and find a way for it to work for you. Find a way to begin anew, to start your season of life with a new perspective. Find your way inside so that you can have ears to hear and eyes to see the potential of you. What thoughts and ideas do you want to reach for? What is your heart's desire? What expression of life, of satisfaction, of happiness, of peace are you wanting to birth in the world? Remember now that it is your faith that is that bridge, that link, that pathway to the kingdom of heaven. That your faith is your hope of good things to come. That your faith is anticipation. It is your magnetic power that draws to you your heart's desire. And then take a breath and let it all go. With faith, it is done. I invite you to come back to this time, this place, to awareness of my voice, of your surroundings, giving thanks. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen, amen, amen. Thank you for tuning in to Unity Spiritual Center of Hilton Head. Thank you for becoming excited about your Advent, your hope, your anticipation of the coming good. If you have been moved, touched, or inspired by anything you've heard today, I invite you to support the spiritual community that supports you, to support Unity of Hilton Head. And you can do that by going to the website and clicking on the donate button. You can do that by going to the website and mailing a check to the address that you find there. And in all things, give thanks. Unity Spiritual Center of Hilton Head gives thanks for you. And we know that on some level, in some way, you are now giving thanks for the message of today. Take good care of you. Have a blessed day. Happy holidays. And I know with great anticipation, you will have a Merry Christmas.